on some blogs that I did around that. So I'm happy to, you could go where we would like. I look forward to enjoying our time together.
Okay, well then that's perfect. Like I said, we'll kind of flow with it. I think we're about ready. We're going to be going live here any second.
Yes, we are. It says it's live streaming on YouTube. So let's go live. Yeah.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to Messages from the Universe. I'm super excited today to introduce our guest, Adam Hall. He's actually, what was your first book that you published?
The Earth Keeper, Undeveloping the Future.
Okay, I like it. And then the book that we're going to be talking about, and I suppose we could go back and forth really, is The Unlearning Curve. 13 Secrets of Divine Wisdom is kind of the topic today. So, I'll give you a little bit of an intro. I know that Bruce Lipton said some marvelous things about this man, so we're very honored to have him here today. But I would actually prefer to hear you share your story about how what your awakening was and what shifted in your life that caused you to open up to this new realm.
Well, I'd be happy to, and I'm honored to be here with you, Cynthia, and all your listeners today. These are extraordinary times, and obviously, we're all facing a lot of challenges in the world. But ultimately, I subscribe that these are extraordinary times of great opportunity. And when I say that, and before I share a little bit about my evolutionary arc from Earth Conqueror to Earth Keeper, as I describe it, I would first of all just invite each of us to tune into this point in time as an opportunity to really leap into our greatest potential as conscious evolutionaries, people that can co-create our lives and dream our lives into being, as our shamanic brothers and sisters have shared with us over the millennium. We have that power. And today I want to talk a little bit about the divine genius, the unlearning curve. And it began for me 18 years ago, almost to the day, when I really, had achieved what we referred to in my generation as the American dream. And this idea of, building the big home and the cars and the clubs and just living this life of ease and work. And ultimately, I recognized at the pinnacle of my success, Cynthia, that I wasn't feeling good. Something was amiss. I was not peaceful. My stomach and my tummy hurt, and I was taking Tums in the morning and drinking a lot of tequila at night.
Oh, okay. So that the magic juice, I guess.
I don't know about that magic juice.
Well, it's in terms of just smothering out those feelings, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole challenge is today is we have everybody has their own pathologies, whether they're, in the extremes of them, or some it's drinking and drugging or sexing or whatever it is. Others, it's just, diving into work and becoming obsessed with
Right.
things that are in our external world. And of course, what gets left behind, our heart and our soul. And it's just like, I'll get to that later. Or if I only had more money or more relationships or love. And what I recognized as I began the shift, because it is a shift, and the journey of awakening or enlightenment, whatever you want to say, it is a journey, as we know, and we're all in that journey in our own unique way, in own beautiful way. And as so long as we're showing up, it's all good. But I wasn't showing up until I essentially got slammed with tremendous amounts of stress and cortisol and not feeling good and angry. it was angry as a man and seemingly fighting the world. And I really became, I was really a narcissist and living very a narcissistic life. And I can
Can I
say that
stop you
clearly.
there right now? So that's amazing that you're self-reflective enough to see that now. And I think that that's part of this, how this message is so powerful, right? Um, I'd also like to connect that to what happened right now when the shutdowns and the lockdowns happen. Do you think that that was an opportunity for people to get real with who they were showing up as in the world?
Absolutely. And that's a very good point because the emergence of the pandemic in early 2020 was just the beginning, I believe, of a wave of energy and light that, as our good friend Dr. Bruce Lipton speaks about, the energetic and the information that comes through the quantum field, how does that impact our biological, physiological nature? It's impacting, we can see what a tremendous impact we've had on Mother Nature. And it's not pretty. And that data, excuse me, is not looking good. It's not a question of what it is, it's a question of what do we do about it? And when I speak of the divine genius, I talk a lot about embracing our power, not in a survival way, but it is in a co-creative way, and that we can really embrace that power. So the idea here of the divine genius is that we can unlearn an old thought system that keeps us separate. If you think about it, we live in a very separate. We're with separate bodies. We're separate from nature. We seemingly are separate from everything. So the key here is to once and for all go back to the source of the problem that created this issue, and choose again. And that's the whole idea of the divine genius and the unlearning curve. And of course, it's scary. And the pandemic, these things are fearful times. I mean, if I think we all would agree, there's a lot of projection of fear in our media, in our world, in our governance, there's more fear in the world than I think the fear index is off. Not it's another form of terror index, if you ask me. So what do you do about it? I think those are the things that we should really focus on.
I was telling a friend, and I want to go back to your story, but I was telling a friend about that when this first when the lockdowns and the masking and all of that happened. I remember telling a friend, like, not really having an understanding of what was really unfolding. I remember being like, I feel fear in the air. Like, there's fear in the air. I know that this is.
Right.
So I mean, at that point, I've already awake and aware, and in 20 years, I have not watched mainstream media. So I was very sensitive and tuned into, wow, this is. I could see immediately what part of the agenda was about that, like taking advantage of the fear, while at the same time I see that it has been a huge opportunity for people to awaken. Either they go deeper into that fear and that asleepness, or it gave them a chance to, especially for those who stopped working, right, to get off the rat race, I guess, and be able to start experiencing life again.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's the data is showing that. I mean, over 4 million people in the US every month are leaving their places of work for various reasons, but I think it's just what you just said, Cynthia. There's a lack of fulfillment. There's a lack of ability for each of us to express our gifts and our genius. And so we've reached a turning point, I believe, in humanity. And I think each of us are in this, yeah, exactly, are in this invitation.
We're
Like,
tipping to the positive, though. I'm
let's
on that trajectory.
let's
I think that we have an opportunity to create in my vision, a utopian society, and we can look at all of. I mean, I'm very aware of probably more so than others, but people who watch this channel probably are just as aware of some of the dark agendas that are unfolding, and I do want some of your answers to that, although I didn't let you finish, like, what caused your awakening.
Well, no worries. And then just to touch real quickly and circle in on the pandemic and the fear index and all that kind of stuff. And it's only as powerful as we choose to make it. And so the divine genius and learning code is about your embracing your power and your truth and your ability to choose. And but ultimately, what I found at the pinnacle of my own success, paradoxically, was that something was missing. And when I was driving down the highway going to work, and I then at that time I lived by the law of the jungle, which says that when the sun comes up in the jungle, whether you are the lion or the gazelle, you better run like hell, eat or be eaten. And I live by that rule. And the competitive world, winner, losers, this is all patriarchal systems and structures are all winding down and dissolving in their own way. And it's going to be tricky and challenging, of course. But the great news is what's emerging, what's rising. The proverbial phoenix of humanity, the golden age, is very present and arising for all of us. And do you want to be part of that, or do you want to stay in the old paradigm? So it's really time to get off the old snide.
I love that perspective because I do see, especially in the patriot movement, which I consider myself a patriot, and uh, and I do see a lot of the focus on the battle and having to fight it out. And to me, that's kind of the old paradigm that we have to fight and struggle. I think that there's a way, and that's why I'm so excited to have you here today, is to bring in the golden age and for us to somehow rise above all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And and let's talk about that, because what I put forth in the book is a bridge, a pathway that will emerge beyond the battlefield. And as an 18-year student of and teacher of A Course in Miracles, the whole objective of A Course is to rise above the battlefield. And this is the very key I find right now, is that, are you in the battlefield and are you fighting? And that could be even unconsciously, we fight for our own survival. We leave our homes. We leave our places of emotional security. We go into the world, and seemingly the old Darwinian Newtonian models of survival of the fittest and whatnot are prevalent and pervasive. And that's true. But that's not the only way. So the way that I put forth in a process with these 13 wisdom teachings is a way to rise above the battlefield. In other words, we're still in the presence and witnessing this, what we would refer to as a 3D human experience, but we're now stepping into our fourth and fifth dimensional experience, which gives us multi-perspective, not to get into a woo-woo or some cosmology,
Well, I
but
mean,
it's
it
offering.
makes sense though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the fifth density is a vibrational level, right? I mean,
Well, they're all have to do with vibrational and frequencies. And if you go and you sit in a movie theater and you got your 3D glasses on, you're having an experience. Well, that is an everyday life experience here in Earth and doing what we do. But when we move into an experience that what I've written extensively about, and there's some blogs on my website, that offer a different perspective of coming into a greater 5-dimensional reality. In other words, it's the difference between if you're in, say, on a football field, and forgive the sports analogy, but you're down in the field. Okay, you're in the game, that's fine. But what is your perspective? What dimensionality are you getting down in the field versus saying, oh, I'm up in the box? I can now see the entire field. I can see the stadium. I can see out beyond that. And that's the whole idea of the divine genius. That's the bridge from the 3D to the 5D, from ego mind to genius mind. And these are there's clearly a path that each of us get to define. And this material that I put forth are 13 stepping stones in a process so that you can essentially take that journey and break through your fear and move into a greater place that I have found, and I would say without a doubt, each of us will find their own genius and the connection to, well, the divine, if you don't
So
mind.
how did you go from being a narcissist and for the love of the rat race, um, like what awoke you from that slumber?
Well, happens, and what happened for me is life events. And in my case, it was, psychological breakdown in my relationship with my partner, but it was a breakdown in life. So that became my breakthrough moment. And would I seize that, carpe diem that, or would I just continue along the same path, which was certain that was a path of death? And we can choose to really live a life that's all about living and fully in wellness, or we can live that other life that's in the 3D and it's stuck. So what catapulted me was really an awareness of saying, well, shit, this doesn't feel that good. But I want to offer something to everybody. I want to offer something that's important. We don't need to wait for a divorce or a life crisis or a health crisis or a planetary crisis. We don't have time to wait around and react, because at that point in time, it could be too late. And it likely will, based upon where we are.
I don't think we have much time left. We need to get it together.
Well, we certainly need to get it together. And, the beauty of that, because you bring up an important point, because in my preface to my book, the question that I asked was, can you get out of this lifetime alive? And that question was not about, oh, well, having our body live here forever. That's not the point. The point is that we're spiritual beings, quantum beings, and we are transcendent of our time and space reality. We're in it, but we're transcendent because we're not bodies, we're spirit. Now that's an interesting idea and a concept for many of us. But as we journey in the path, we begin to realize that. So the beauty of time and space, and we talk a lot about this in the shamanic traditions, is that our capability is to transcend that time space reality. In other words, we can live in it, but we can also live beyond it, which is where we are eternal, where that timelessness, immortality comes into play. So we have a teaching that I put forth in the Divine Genius. It's teaching number 4 about death, and how there's a great misunderstanding about what death is and what it offers. And it actually is a gift. You may have heard the phrase, the angel of death. It's a gift that allows us to let die away what no longer serves us. The Divine Genius and Unlearning curve offers a pathway through letting go, through surrender, through facing the greatest fear that any of us can have in a human body, and that is we're going to die, and the physical body will.
And you had to have a death of your ego, right? So that's what you're really talking about, is dying to that old version of yourself as well, right?
Yes, it beautifully said, Cynthia, and it's dying consciously. I mean, do you want the world to dictate how you want to let go? Do you want to be forced by conditions in the world, by a trauma or somebody in your past, or an abusive spouse, or you want to allow a boss or anything? You want that person to dictate how you want to live your life and how you want to think and feel? Of course you don't. So the idea here is in just grabbing that power, embracing the genius, as I refer to it, in you to do that. And this is a journey and we're all together on it. That's the beauty of it. That's what makes it so good.
So, what's the best way for, out of all of these 13 keys or wisdom pieces, for somebody to start with that awakening process?
Well, first of all, if you're listening to Cynthia, you've already started. If you're tuning into her work and being here,
Yeah.
congratulations. You took the biggest step ever.
Congratulations.
So right away, I think this is what's really key, is to show up, because when we show up, what something quite remarkable happens. And what I found that happens, and it's, of course, it's uniquely our own, and the journey gets to be defined by each of us. This isn't Adam's journey or Cynthia's journey. This is your journey, and you get to define it on your terms at your pace, but you've shown up. So what I say to folks is that in that embracing of that showing up, what happens is that there's an invitation that comes forth immediately. And that invitation, what I would describe, comes from your heart. And your heart is inviting the universe and others to come to a place of where you can tune in and listen, instead of not listening and talking and doing in the world. But we come to a place that we go, oh, I'm hearing things that I've not heard. Even I'm seeing things that I have not seen. This is the beauty of the heart. It's a multi-dimensional organ that offers us ears and sight that is transcendent of our sight and ears. It's here. And in that place, that step is an invitation to have guidance and to invite, through prayer and gratitude and receptivity, an invitation to ask spirit, ask your soul to express those words that will guide you. You don't, you in the Course in Miracles, it speaks to, you need do nothing. Well, that doesn't mean not doing anything in the world, but what that means, what that deep wisdom means, is in that intuitive place of your own genius, of your own heart. There's nothing to do. You can be present and you can listen and you can guide and act accordingly. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that that's part of the planetary shift that we're going through, right? The Earth's atmosphere is increasing its frequency, and going from the third dimension to the fourth and the fifth is actually, isn't that part of the connection of the mind and the heart? Like, that's part of what I was having a discussion with somebody in the last couple of days about. That I mean, we could talk about all the details, but the biggest challenge is people going from their head and their critical thinking and the doing and all of that, and being able to settle into their heart and having that heart mind coherence.
Well, 100%. Well, let's touch on that, and let's get a little more granular, because people want to know what that really is. I mean, of course, and conceptually, the idea of heart connection and mind connection is key. and that's beautiful. How do you get that? How do you find that connection is the real answer. And what I found through my study and my research and my work, my shamanic work, A Course in Miracles work, is that it's not a function of having to obtain this greater connection, this greater awakening. And matter of fact, the cosmic joke is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Human, you're already enlightened, okay? And it's just a function of deciding again for your enlightenment versus your separation. And so in the Eastern traditions, it's ignorance. And so the offering here is, okay, what is going on that keeps us separate from our heart and mind connection? Because once the heart and the mind come into a connection, that all of a sudden opens up into this greater quantum field.
But what is that? Like, I don't, to be honest, I've been so connected to my heart. Like, I don't know how to explain that to people other than like how to break through. Like, I've been doing this for so many years that I can feel the difference of when I'm in my head, when I'm being a critical thinker versus being in my heart versus being heart and mind connected.
I love that, and I'll let's riff on that for a minute, because I think that's the whole idea, because it is a feeling place, and in the Divine Genius, I speak a lot about how we can come into that place of deeper feeling, which is through a process I call true forgiveness. In other words, we must transcend the idea of the victim perpetrator mentality, and forgiveness as we know it says, oh, I'm gonna let that person go.
Number one, right?
Yeah, it's number one. It is the key. And if you don't walk away from anything from reading the Divine Genius, that's it. But the idea here is really to embrace, the forgiveness, not for what happened. It's not to deny it, and it's not to be de minimis to the traumas and difficult things we feel and are experiencing in our life. It's only to say, I don't want it to control me. I'm going to choose not to allow this event or this person to control me anymore. And the power of true forgiveness, and that first wisdom teaching, is we are able to transcend. You can't go around it. And we say, oh, I'm going to forgive it, and he may be guilty of the same old thing, but that still has power. So by disempowering, we forgive the situation, not for what happened, but for what did not happen. And what did not happen is quite simple. It's that we individually, each of us, we forget of our connection with the other person, or we forget our connection with the event. We want to separate it. We want to put it over there, but our personal connection is with another human being. And we all make the error of perpetrating or feeling the victim or events. We all do the same thing. Nobody gets a pass on this. We're humans. We wouldn't be here if weren't doing that. But the idea is we can forgive ourselves for making that error, and we can offer other people to do the same. It's up to them whether they do that or not, but we know we have the power to do that.
So I've always believed that forgiveness is, and especially right now, if for people that are more biblically oriented, this is what's unfolding, can easily be interpreted as the book of Revelations right now. And one of the things that I always say is, I don't typically use the word repent, but that's what it's about, right? Repenting. And that's part of forgiveness. Like, that's understanding and recognizing and setting yourself free as well as setting others free.
Yeah, the difference in religiosity is served its purpose in its own way. I believe the relevancy of a book or a intermediary, be it a guru or priest, it's irrelevant today, because I believe you are the book. You are the one that gets to define how you want to live your life and how you want to move through these ideas of guilt and judgment and these things. And the whole idea here is that forgiveness in the context of religiosity and repent is that it's being told or being asked by a book or a preacher or something that's intermediating between you and your God. There is no intermediary between
Oh,
you or your God.
because when you repent, you're supposed to go into a room to do it. Is that?
Well, I my
I mean, like to me, it means I guess religiously, right? That's how that would work. But
well, typically it is. I mean, obviously
yeah,
we have things like confession, and we have things where we have to feel like guilty son of a guns, and I believe that's a story that is done. And I believe there's greater power for each of us to embrace our story and to write our own true story. You made a point earlier, and I think we kind of were remiss, and I want to go back to it real quickly. And that goes directly to the point of there's no intermediary between ourselves, our heart, our body, our mind, our souls, and God, or whatever that may be for us. It may be simply the quantum field. But the key here is in the pathway is there's obstacles. And the challenge is really as much about removing the obstacles on the path, because the revelation of what's present is always present. Love is present. Love surrounds us in our walk, in our journey. Beauty surrounds us in our walk, in our joy, abundance. This is the
all
nature
there,
of the field. But
there.
when we're stuck in a separate place and we're seeing, oh, I'm just going to sabotage myself. I mean, how many times do you think about in your life? How many we sabotage ourselves? And I was really good at this. I just was destructive in relationships and all kinds of things. So the idea is let's tend to some of these obstacles. And on my website at
I was
animalhall.solutions,
gonna
you can
say,
see
can
it.
you tell them where they can find this information?
Absolutely. You can certainly get it in the Divine Genius, the Unlearning Curve. And that book speaks specifically about it and can help you along the way, but also at my website, adamhall.solutions. And there are writings about and blogs and things that are obstacles, things that keep us stuck in a 3D story, keep us stuck emotionally, things that invite us into ideas and practical places, steps that we can embrace to really come into our fullness of who we are.
That's awesome. So I still want to go back to how you woke up and how did you break the, um, I guess for lack of a better way to say it, the addiction to something other than your own peace, right? You were talking about tequila every night, and it was tequila, right?
Yes, some good
Yeah.
tequila.
And so, did it just naturally happen for you as you were becoming more spiritually evolved, or did something cause you to be able to overcome that?
Well, pain, of course, is a powerful motivator. The journey is as much about what causes you or catapults you or pushes you into waking up as to why you went to sleep in the first place. And the whole idea of the divine genius and the unlearning curve is not only to look at what pushing us into waking up, but why did this happen in the first place? Because can you imagine if you understand and know why something occurred, that means you have the ability to go back and actually change why something occurred. And you can do that because that's the power and the beauty of this amazing this operating system that we live within. And my journey that was about really like what pushed me, and this is a beautiful thing for the work that you're doing and the people, everybody's showing up. And that's the key, because that voice begins to listen to the soul, the heart, the mind connection. As we connect, not just heart and mind, but as we begin to connect in our depth of our own soul into the connection to the whole, we begin to be pulled instead of being pushed. Spirit and guides will pull us. And I'm not just talking about guides that are angels or fairies or these. That's all fine too. And I have those guides, but also people are here on the planet to guide us. You're a guide in your work. I'm a guide in my work. And guess what? So is every one of us. We're all guides. That's why it's important we show up now.
So I gotta ask though, about gonna shift topic a little bit. So I want to talk about free will and divine will.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I want the answers.
Well, this is a great question because there is this ostensibly, for lack of a better description, this battle that's underway culturally, whether you call it the culture wars or cancel culture or wokeism or new policies, governmental, more systems, more seemingly perception of command and control. I'm not going to get off into that conversation, but it speaks to this idea of these wisdom teachings where I dive into deeply free will and divine will. And so let's look at that for a moment, because what I've found in our 3D experience, this human life experience we're talking right now, we're engaging at work. This is this idea of this, really amazing experience in its own way, but it's chaotic. It's full of, major events. And it'll always be that way. It's just how it goes. It's kind of chaos and it's controlled. So the idea there is that the gift of the human design, the human body, our heart, our psychological, our emotional place, all of that, the gift of who we are and what's been given is that we've been given free will. So in the 3D world, we have free will, because if we didn't have free will, then we'd just be purely and forever enslaved and subjugated to the system. Now, many of us feel like we are. Well, we are because you chose to be, but there's another choice. You can choose differently. You can choose again beyond the place that speaks to this idea. You can get out of this. If it's a prison, it's a prison. You can get out of that. You have the key. The idea of the divine genius, the unlearning curve is a key to bridge out, to get out, to open that door. But the idea, Cynthia, the idea of divine will is when we are able to let go of that idea, and the divine has a will for us. The greater nature of who we are, in addition to our 3D physical life, the greater totality of who we are has a will for us. And that will is quite simple. And it's simple in that it's an abundance of peace, of joy, of love. That's it. It just is. That's the will of the divine. That will of the divine is applicable to every single human being. Nobody can say, oh, that's not me, and I don't get that, and I'm not worthy. Not true.
Well,
that's a story.
is there so that's all there for us, and it definitely is where you put your attention, right? So if you put your attention on negative things, you're going to have more of those experiences, right? What you feel, you're going to experience, so to speak, right? If you feel love and you feel abundance, you're going to experience and recognize that it's all around us.
100%. And again, what we're talking about is the bridge between this life experience in this 3D world and really embracing a greater totality of who we are as multidimensional human beings having a greater experience. The
Yeah.
five senses are just physical expenses. They're
Right.
multi-sensory nature. The
But
idea is, imagine if you were just going to show up at Thanksgiving
yeah.
or Christmas to sell, or Hanukkah, and you're going to show up and there is this beautiful pie, your favorite pie, and all as you're doing is taking a little nibble, a little sliver, and tasting that. That's what a 3D experience is. We're just having a little bit of the potential and the possibility of our life experience. So let's indulge a little bit in this greater capacity, this amazing capacity we have, because we're geniuses, everybody is. And let's move into that, but we got to move through the fear. We got to move into the unknown.
Yeah. So, I want to know though what your thoughts are on. Going back to will, free will. Like when you were in that miserable state, you were playing out your more of your egoic will, right, so to speak.
Yes.
Um,
Yes,
but
that's correct.
divine will, like what I wonder about it is how much of this like path is like the divine will. Do you follow what I'm saying? Like, I know that I've had such synchronicities in my life that I know that they had to have been planned out from something much greater than my three-dimensional self.
Well, great question, actually. And little sidebar to writing a book, and everybody's got a book in them. So why not get on with your book? But I initially, my working title for Divine Genius was Divine Design. And the idea here is that there's a greater design, and I talk a bit about it in the book. There's a greater design that we're part of. In other words, we're part of this greater planet. We're part of this greater solar system. We're part of this greater universal and multi-universal system that we call, well, the universe or the multiverse. So the idea here is really to understand that we're part of this greater elegant design, this divine design, and that embracing that we become, well, let's just say there's something more than ourselves. There's something greater than ourselves. There's something to serve and support that's greater than ourselves. So as I showed up more on the path that I chose, I begin to recognize this truth, this absolute truth. But to do that, we have to do something that's extraordinary, Cynthia. And what's extraordinary is we have to face the fear and walk straight into it. And it's like simply, it can be best described if there is a fog in front of your road, you must walk, not stop. We must walk right into it, and to know that this is a place we must go. And that's what's terrifying. And that's why the vast majority of us are asleep in this way, is we do not want to move through our fears and into the unknown. And we can certainly talk more about that. I have a lot
Well,
of videos around that and blogs around that.
that's great. I was going to ask, are you also doing coaching or what other, or just a lot of information on your website for people?
Oh, my work right now is I've been doing a bunch of summits and working with others like Dr. Bruce Lipton and Alberto Vialdo and Lynn McTaggart, and got a summit coming up called the Earthkeeper Summit. It's coming up in December, December 17th. You can check it out, the Earthkeeper Summit. You must Google that because it's going to be a great free event. And my work right now is writing. And I am doing some coaching, although I don't think of it as coaching. I want to make myself available to just the everyday spiritual traveler to engage with me at a reasonable amount of dollars, a good exchange, to help people move through some challenges that they're having in their life, and obstacles, to remove those obstacles. And actually, I'm launching on my website next week a new special that's going to be able to allow people to show up. So if you want to check out that and you want to do a little work together, I'm happy to support you and really help lift you into your genius and remove anything that's keeping you from your absolute abundance.
At adamhall.com.
AdamHall.solutions, right there under my name. It's AdamHall.solutions. And I'll be that'll be available, well, starting probably around the 5th of the month, maybe as early as the first. But I have some limited space, but I'd love to check in with anybody.
So I still have more. I have more questions though.
Keep going. Let's do it.
So what about I'm going to go back to what we were just talking about, like people staying asleep and that they need to walk right through the fear. And what do you think about the metaverse?
Well, I think
kind of the opposite of I'm just not going to face any of it and I'm just going to go put my goggles on. I don't.
Well, exactly right. And everything that's being said here is not worth a dime or anything unless you do something with it. Unless you make it your own personal experience, you could travel around the universes. You can go do all the ayahuasca you want to do. You can go.
You did some ayahuasca too, which I didn't ask about that yet. But
well, you can go to all the workshops and all the teachers, and the whole idea here is the embodiment. And my objective with the Divine Genius Unlearning Curve is to empower the reader, empower the journeyer that's on the path. To you don't need anybody. You are the answer. And that's the whole idea of really embracing our own power and our own truth. So if you want to go fly around the universe or you want to do these things, okay, go for it. But at the same time, if it's not grounded or embodied, then it doesn't mean anything. It's just information. And the difference between information and knowledge is that you have the wisdom and the experience to bring it and apply it in your life. And this is the conundrum for people that want to share and empower their journey, but at the same time, share, what it means for you and how you felt and the pain that maybe, or the grief that we go through. All of us go through a grieving process of letting go of this old stuff. And, it's like, oh, well, who needs it anyway? Well, it's not that simple because it's something we've lived with maybe for lifetimes, if you believe in that. So this is a great time to fully embrace, awaken as you describe.
So, a couple thoughts on that though, is as you talk about the simulated reality that's not embodied. I kind of wonder about, aren't we kind of already playing out a simulation in a way, like in these physical bodies? If our souls go, which I do believe, and I've had my own experiences, then coming back into this body is kind of a simulation of experimenting and exploring, right? So why wouldn't I want to be present in this body than going into a goggled version?
Well, that's the whole idea. I think the key is it's you're bringing up perception, the nature of perception. And, and one of the things, I share 4 key life experiences. And the first life experience, if you don't mind, I'll make it brief, is that life is happening to us. We're the victim, we're the perpetrator, right. And we judge and we're guilty. It's real simple. The second one is that life's happening from us. Oh, by God, this is a crazy, chaotic world. I'm going to control it. So it's control. we know that right. In a patriarchal system more than everything. We're all, it's not just about men and women. It's we want to control. The third piece is life is happening for us. And ain't this the darn truth? Everybody shows up, even the people that have been, the greatest challenges to me, the hardest lessons I've learned, they're showing up in our lives. And the Earth School is very powerful. And are you learning the lessons, and are you graduating and stepping into your greater potential and greater truth? And are you still playing small? Well, it's time to grow up and graduate and move on with our lives and our potential. We need everybody. Everybody's part of this journey. And lastly, life is happening through us. In other words, that's when the divine will begins to penetrate. It begins to come through us. And in that place, we are surrendered to the greatest force that exists, the life force. And then that connection of body, mind, spirit, soul, vibration, heart, frequency, psychological, spiritual connection to the quantum field, then we become powerful manifestors. And we do what our shamanic brothers and sisters have done over the ages. We dream the world into being, and this is a time to dream our lives into being, and we fully are capable of this. This is the beauty of being so alive.
So, what do you think the best advice is for all of us in this time to dream into our new reality?
Well, twofold. One of the things I talk about, and I really want to help, people that I work with and leaders in business, or just everyday people on the path, so to speak, is first and foremost to be honest, to be radically honest. We need to see things for how they are, not for how we want them to be. In other words, it's so easy. What I found is I wanted to put rose-colored glasses on my life to say, this is fine. I'm going to be okay with this, and I can control this, and I can manage this. It's freaking exhausting. So we need to really be radically honest. And I'm going to just be upfront, because if we're not radically honest, then we're just BSing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first key is, okay, let me be real with this. Let me really take a look at this and, understand this for what it is. And then we can be guided. So in other words, when we come to that place, then we can move back into a place of forgiveness. That key first wisdom teaching, true forgiveness, not the other way around. That's a key teaching, and you can tune into that deeply in the book. And when we come to that place, then all of a sudden we're in our hearts. We begin to accept ourselves, and we can love ourselves for our humanness. Not that we're some miserable son of a bitches and something's going to strike us down. That's a bunch of nonsense. And forgive me if that's what you subscribe to, but that's just what it is. Because in the place that we embrace the truth of who we are and the love of ourselves, then we can listen again. So those are first key little steps, because then you can, what I found, catapulted, leap into a whole new life experience, a life experience that becomes purely more peaceful and joyful and abundance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I guess one last sort of comment around that is,
Sure.
um, I've heard more religious type and say, well, all these new agers that love themselves, and that somehow that's a negative. And I'm not sure that they're understanding what we're talking about, because to me, loving self is coming from a place of being in love, feeling worthy. Because when we have that, when we are full, we're actually able to provide space for others in love, to be able to exude that love. So to me, if it's really centered and grounded in that divinity, then it couldn't be more powerful.
Amen. Drop the mic, Cynthia.
All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure spending some time with you. I hope that we get to do it again in the
Anytime.
future.
Yes.
Definitely go out and get this book. The 13 um, pieces of wisdom are very powerful from what I've seen. Do you want to mention them really quick, or just go get the book and find out for yourself?
Well, we mentioned a few,
Yeah, we did a
and
few of them.
we mentioned quite a few, but these 13 wisdom teachings are as follows, and then I'm going to sign off for the day. But the first and foremost is forgiveness. There's purpose. There is a sense of death. How do we die? Consciously. There's the life force. How do we connect to the chi force, the life force that gives us vitality and health? There's peace. There's love. There's function. How are we functioning in the world and operating in the world? There's destiny. What are you destined? We're not simply people of fate. We're people of destiny. There's divine doing, divine being. There's evolution, ascending to heaven and earth in connection. There's involution. What's meeting us is the involutionary, the divine force, and ultimately there's unification. And because we are one, we're oneness in our heart, we're
So it
oneness in
ends
our
on
soul.
unification.
Yes, and this is the idea of oneness.
I'm gonna bump you. Unified.
Okay, I love that. So pick up The Divine Genius. You can find it on Amazon worldwide. I also published another book last week that's now on Amazon. It's a little book called The Little Book of Genius, and this one is on abundance. Isn't it time that we end the idea of lack and scarcity once and for all? You can find them on Amazon worldwide. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to coming back with you, Cynthia.
Thank you. Have a
Okay.
wonderful day.
Okay. Blessings. Godspeed.
Blessings.